Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR talk on Prime Sports NASCAR. As we promised in our last show, which was the charter, the NASCAR Cup Series charter system explained report that we did about a week or so ago. We promised we would conclude our two-part series with the NASCAR silly season report, and that's exactly what we are going to do right here. We are going to talk NASCAR Silly Season 2022 with Eric Smith of RaceReviewOnline.net. So this is a fun time of year for everybody, Eric.
Yeah, it truly is silly, especially after yesterday's announcement that came out of left field that Chip Ganassi Racing just completely sold the team to Trackhouse. So Trackhouse just one-upped KAULIG, who now reportedly spent $10 million each on charters to completely buy out an existing team. So, it has gotten really silly, which is going to affect some of these rides now. Again, adds another layer to things, which we'll predict here in a few.
Yeah, it's and that's why it's important to have both of these reports on at the same time, because and that's why we want to do the charter system report first, because it's a very difficult system to understand. And so I know everybody wants to get into free agency in every sport and the silly season with NASCAR, but you do also have to understand what's going on as far as how the charter system works. So you can check out that report that's already available up on the site as well. Okay, so on this show, as you can see here, we are going to talk about the rides that are open for 2022. We're going to fill in those rides with predictions, analysis on the drivers that we're thinking about. These are the top contenders. Here's the final predictions. And also, a lot has to do with which drivers are free agents. Yep. And we're going to, at the end of the show, put that free agent list together so you can check out. And I think we have a top 10 free agent list, and there's only one driver that we would call a top 10 free agent that you did not find a home for. Who was that?
Harrison Burton. I think he's, and granted, he may not be a true free agent. I just know that he's a lot of deals can be broke. He's in his second year in the Xfinity Series. Most drivers, their path, 2 years Xfinity and the move up in the Cup. So does it serve him well to come back for a third year? I did not find a home for him for Cup. So that's why I had him on the list as a free agent. Where does he move up to? I did not find a home for him for the existing rides that we feel right now are open. Granted, things could fly out of left field like yesterday's announcement with Chip Ganassi Racing and Trackhouse. Things could change, but from where we feel like things are today, at this moment on July 1st, I just did not find him a home for the teams. That is, and also a home that, granted, he could jump into a ride, but he also, I don't feel like he wants to give up those Toyota ties. You don't want to just move up to a team and just to move up. And
so where's he going to be in 2023, you think?
2023, I feel like he will be in Cup. I feel like there'll be another path to him.
Where do you think?
I feel like it will probably be between Gibbs or Denny Hamlin's team. I feel like I'll explain a little bit more why with one of my picks in this here in a few minutes of why I feel like he will end up with one of these scenarios.
Okay, sounds good. Now, let's go ahead and start, first of all, with Hendrick. And this is an easy one to talk about, as you can see.
Nobody's going anywhere.
No.
Not probably for the next decade. I don't see Hendrick.
And why would
those guys go? Yeah, they're all young. The oldest driver is Larson and Bowman, and they're 28. They're in their prime. They're not going anywhere. Bowman just, I grant it was a formality. He just re-signed another 2-year deal a few weeks ago. So, they are set for the future. 4 drivers there. You can't expand to a fifth team. That's your 4-car team for 2022.
Next up is Joe Gibbs Racing.
Same deal.
Same thing.
Yep, they're granted. Truex just signed a deal. Christopher Bell's new this year. They're not getting rid of him. Kyle Busch, why would you ever get rid of him? And Denny Hamlin's got a new deal for another couple of years. So I think they are set for 22 and probably 23 as well with that same driver lineup.
Is Hamlin after 2023 going to go with his own team?
I think eventually he'll go with his own team, or he may just drive it out with Gibbs and then just retire and be an owner. So, but right now I feel like that is your team for next year. And probably 23 too, but we'll see what contracts line up then.
All right. Next up is Richard Childress Racing, and there's only 2, but
I don't see them expanding because they got an alliance with Trackhouse, and now Ganassi with that whole deal. But they don't have the money to expand for a third charter. Austin Dillon's Richard Childress' grandson. He's not going anywhere, and Tyler Reddick has been a rising guy, so he's not going anywhere either.
All right. Richard Petty is next because it's pretty simple.
Yeah, he signed a multi-year deal. I don't think Petty's going to let him get away. And granted, Jones will probably like to take a better ride,
Sure.
but as you'll see as things play out, I just don't see a path to him leaving there and having a better ride without.
And that's too bad because he's a talented driver that's stuck in a bad situation.
He is. He could possibly get out. I'll mention a few scenarios when we get down to him, but it's a risk to come out of a guaranteed ride at least and not have a fallback. So I think because of a multi-year deal, maybe he'll be back next year.
Is it more because of does he have a sponsorship issue?
He just doesn't have funding. He just doesn't have that sponsor tied to him to come in and say, "Here's my check. I'll take that ride." He's got talent. It's just,
I mean, when you compare Custer and who else is on good teams this year?
Younger guys?
Yeah, younger. Bell.
Like Bell. Bell replaced him. Yep.
Bell replaced him.
Yep.
How old is Jones?
He's probably 23, 24. He's a young guy.
So. I don't get. We talked about it last year. I just didn't get it, and I still don't get it. I don't understand what is the deal with Eric Jones. Why he just cannot find a good team. I don't understand it.
And Toyota, I think they point at Gibbs. He should have won with Gibbs more, and
but he was still constantly. He still ended up. I mean, we go over some of these track races every week, and like this week, I believe Eric Jones, wherever it is, I think I saw.
At Pocono, he was good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was Pocono. He had all these top finishes, and it's like, well, he's not going to finish in the top 5 this week because he's on Petty. So
yep, and he's just kind of stuck. He's just got to play that game right now, where his only other option would be to go back down, like John Hunter Nemechek did, which we'll talk about probably another show. But he was an afterthought with Front Row Motorsports last year. He was just there. He was a Cup driver, but the best he was going to do was 24th, 25th. He goes back to Kyle Busch Motorsports and Trucks. He wins 5 races already. He's the clear championship favorite. And now a path back up through the Toyota ranks is back on him. So it's just about changing your path. But it's a risk. What if you go back down and you don't look good anymore? Jones was good in the trucks before. Nemechek was good in trucks before. What if you go back down and I could barely finish in the top 5? That's career suicide at that point. At least you're a Cup driver. So you got to balance that. And I feel like with Jones, there are a lot of rides open. He could be in the mix, but as we'll talk about in a second, I don't know if he's going to have a leg up on some of the guys that might already for those rides.
All right, next Spire, and again, it's simple because Corey LaJoie will be back.
Yeah, this is the last one we feel comfortable will be back. They already said he'll be back. They sparked this thing by selling. They had 3 charters. We talked about this in the last show. They sold 2 of them. The KAULIG and that sparked Trackhouse, the search for 2 charters like we talked about. They bought Chip Ganassi Racing out, have 2 charters, have a ride open. So this sparked the whole thing. This is the last team that I feel like they're set. Then now you're going to have movement from everybody else forward.
And that starts with Roush Fenway.
Yep.
And we already put Brad Keselowski on the board because everybody knows Brad Keselowski will be with Roush Fenway next year.
It's eventually going to happen. It just hasn't been formally announced, but nobody's denying it. It's going to happen. He's going to take over. Buescher's not going anywhere. That's why I feel like he goes to the 6 car. The only scenario would be a formality, which could be missing right now. We've not no indications it will. Is does Buescher move to the 6 and that 6, the 17 get rebranded? Okay. I doubt it because Roush Fenway has ran those numbers forever, so it's probably going to stay put that way.
And this is going to be a big. I mean, for Buescher, this is huge, and for Roush Fenway, it's just an amazing coup because they have been. It's just. I remember interviewing Mr. Roush when the Roadhouse Grill was there. They were our sponsor in Daytona. We had shows there, and we interviewed them, and they were at the peak of the industry. It's just amazing how things have just fallen for them over the years, and this has got to be the beginning of their comeback.
Yeah, Keselowski's not going to do this to be an afterthought. He's going to do this to do it right. A lot of people are questioning, why would you leave Penske to do this? Well, it's like Tony Stewart left Gibbs to start Stewart Haas. Haas Racing was nothing. And then Tony Stewart comes in and instantly makes him a championship contender. Keselowski can do the same thing. He's a smart businessman. He used to run a truck team. A lot of his past truck drivers are in Cup now, so he knows what he's doing. He's going to bring some money, obviously. You don't do this without bringing something. So it's a good move in that sense. Plus, and I'm going to write about this later, the ownership model is changing in NASCAR. It's getting younger. A couple years ago, we talked about, look, what's the future? These guys the owners are on their 70s and 80s. Who is the future? Keselowski can take Roush Fenway. Jeff Gordon taking over Hendrick in a few years. Penske can go to Tim Cindric. Ganassi just sold the track house with Justin Marks. It's starting to get younger, and this is the another wave, another reason for that, or example. And that's going to happen. Too many people, they would have been denied by now. It's happening,
Yeah.
so that put Keselowski there. I don't think with this move they're going to buy a third charter.
No.
Why would they bite too much? So that's
No.
your 2-car team next year, which then puts Newman out, which further complicates some silly season, which will lead us into the Penske guys next.
That's it. And so with Keselowski gone, we know Blaney and Logano are still there. The news came out this past week that Ryan Blaney's crew chief is going to retire.
Yep.
And we've talked all season about the difficulty that Ryan Blaney has had based on the performance of his team. And he gets this really big time crew chief too. And it just hasn't helped him. He hasn't been helped at all. And now you hear that he's retiring and you're like, well, maybe this answers some questions. Maybe, if the leader, the crew chief, if his head's not in the game, maybe it trickles down to everybody else. I hope they can figure out a way, though, to kind of, maybe now that this is an official announcement, maybe they can kind of figure out a way to, hey, let's try to do this right before I retire.
And I think the most logical sense here, which right now we're just because Blaney's in the 12, there's been no indication. This is me speculating. But to me, the most logical thing is move Blaney to the 2. And here's why. That team is already an existing team. Jeremy Bolins is that crew chief. That team's there. Move Blaney there. And then the new guy, because there's going to be a new guy.
Oh, goes with the new crew chief.
Goes with the new crew chief. He brings his own up, which leads me to a few drivers who could take this over. Cindric is the most logical option because Lawson Cindric, as there you have it. His dad is Tim Cindric. He's like second in command at Penske. And Cindric right now has got a contract with the Wood brothers. That's why DiBenedetto was announced last year won't be back because he's supposed to go to 21. They're in alliance with Penske. It's like a fourth Penske car per se. So he right now has a contract to drive there. Eventually was going to come over to Penske and take over this 2 car, which makes sense why you let him drive the 2. But could they move the Benedetto over? Could they say, you're already under contract. We'll just shift you to Penske. Or do they just say, you know what? This is the inevitable is going to end up happening in a couple years anyways. Let's just do it now. Let's just move Cindric over, which I think is the most logical option. The Benedetto's already got a year-to-year contract. Do you just leave him put, or do you bring somebody on the outside? To me, if this is the end goal and you're moving him up to Cup next year anyways, why not just shuffle him over to Penske, which is what I think will eventually happen. So, and he can bring his crew chief and everybody from the Xfinity team up, and they run his Cup car, which is why I feel like Blaney should take.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that's what I think is going to happen there. I think Cindric will end up moving up and being. Well, I know he's moving up. We'll just shift over to the. So
that would mean that Blaney would be driving Keselowski's sponsorship, everything.
Yeah, he'd take all that over. Yep. Or you could basically leave Blaney as alone, let Cindric take over Keselowski's, but that crew chief, everything just moves the Blaney's team, which is the most logical for branding, marketing purposes. Blaney probably stays in the 12. He just inherits that team.
And it's interesting because you believe the 2 guys that are in the running for both Penske opening and Wood Brothers was only, of course, has 1 opening, maybe, which would be DiBenedetto, is whether or not he comes back, or it's Cindric. So, which again just makes a little bit too much sense that Cindric goes to Penske and DiBenedetto stays at Wood Brothers.
It's the inevitable, and it keeps them. It keeps it from muddy. I mean, could DiBenedetto just flat out leave and go find something else? Absolutely. Maybe he already has. They just can't announce it yet. But it makes the most sense. He had a 3-year deal, and he told us last year it's year to year, and they let him out early last year to find something else. For them to make that phone call, hey, Matt, have you found anything else? No. We've got a good thing working here. We're aligned with Penske. Who knows what the future holds, but we would like to keep you another year. Do you want to sign a multi-year contract to know you're at least safe here in this ride? The only way you were getting bumped was because we knew Cindric was coming up. We've actually found a home for him to where he was going to go anyway, so let's just, instead of skipping it, would you like to come back? And to me, right now, granted things could change, it's the most logical fit is just to keep the Benedetto in the 21.
All right. Next up is Stewart Haas, and this is one of the big teams.
Yep.
That still has an opening there. All right. At least that looks like what. Look, Eric Almirola's just had a really bad season, and we knew he was kind of on that line anyway going into the season. He was going to have to take a step forward. He's now taking a step back, and unless he finds a way to win a race, it might be too late anyway. But let's just say he wins a race, and all of a sudden things just change on a dime. It's looking like that's gonna be an opening, correct?
Yeah, because let's be honest, he's 38. He'll be 38 next March. He's not old by any stretch of imagination. And let's just call a spade a spade. The only reason he's keeps re-upping with Stewart Haas is Smithfield. He's bringing sponsorship. That's keeping that car there. If Smithfield wants to keep it going, I can see him being there again. But look at the results. Look, is it time to just let's start, so because we're not gaining anywhere. We got 2 young guys. We got Harvick till 23. Do we get another young guy in this car or somebody that can maybe help us or bring a little bit of funding? My driver, which we'll reveal in a second, is completely out of left field. People might not think of it, but I'll explain why I feel like he's going there.
Could this be a place for Di Benedetto?
Yeah, I was going to say, that was granted to say. This could be a spot for him, and maybe they've already talked. It would be a great spot for him. But if they haven't, I feel like there's another driver out there that's a free agent that they could get there. The Benedetto, I feel like Ross Chastain you talk to. I don't think
what about Priest?
Priest would be one I talk to. Here's where Priest and his teammate, and you could reveal who I say because I'm going to tie them in together. There he is. People might think, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. What? Think about this connection here. He's got NOS Energy. He's got a few sponsors in his back pocket. But what's Stenhouse do when he came up through the ranks? He's a sprint car driver. What's Tony Stewart do when he came through the ranks? Sprint car driver. They're two in the same. Do you know who Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s agent is? The guy over there next to him, Kevin Harvick. Same with Ryan Priest.
Okay.
It makes a lot of Harvick was not happy when Roush kind of threw Stenhouse to the curb late in silly season a few years ago. So if I'm Stenhouse, I'm asking around. That's a good right for him. He's a former Ford driver. Yeah. He'll be 34 in October. He's got a couple years left.
I can't even believe he's that old.
Yeah, people don't realize he's as old as he is, but he's 34. He's got a few years.
I realize it when I look at the Xfinity record, and I'll look and I'll go, okay, here's some of the things he's done, and I look at it at when he raced in the series. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
And then people will look at his results, but you also got to look at who he's raced for in Cup. Roush, when he moved up, was already on their decline.
Yeah.
JTG is not a top team, so I'd be curious what he can do. This is a low risk scenario. Sign him for a year or two.
And he brings a little bit of funding.
They do. This is a guy that's a veteran, but he's not too old. That if it works out, he can give you a decade. Look at Kevin Harvick's age. If it doesn't work out, you've got a couple years, and maybe you got 2 rides open at Stewart Haas. But because the tie with Harvick, Priest is also represented by Harvick, so that's why I say either one of them.
The thing with Priest, though, is it goes back to Custer, Briscoe, Priest. I mean, you can't have those 3 guys with Harvick again. I mean, Harvick needs a veteran for at least a year, year to kind of get these other young drivers to pick things up.
This gives you the help, and it's a same-minded guy. Stewart and Stenhouse know each other well. They consider they're friends. Let's not discount the option that here's a weird scenario. I'm not trying to be TMZ here, but who did Ricky Stenhouse Jr. used to date?
Yeah.
And look at the ride he'd be taking over.
That's true.
So, but there's a lot of connections. That is just a weird coincidence. I'm not saying that's the reason why he's going to go to the 10 car. But
that is funny.
him and Stewart knew each other a lot because of that. Stewart knows the type of dirt racer, what he would need out of a car. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Stenhouse to move to the 10.
All right.
Which sparks more later, and a few more. But the next team we'll look at here is Trackhouse.
Yep.
Bot Ganassi, nobody saw that coming. Now they've got 2 rides. So they did say
Ganassi, and there's a lot of possibilities here.
There's a lot. Chastain, Kurt Busch, Stenhouse, the Benedetto, Newman,
Almirola.
Every free agent could be tied here. They clearly got money. They clearly could get, but they need maybe a little bit more sponsor.
And don't you think, though, I'm thinking that it's going to come down to, with Kurt Busch, it's going to come down to the 23-11 team
Yep.
or Trackhouse.
I
And
fully agree. Yep.
this would be huge if Trackhouse could find a way to bring Kurt Busch there away from Michael Jordan's team. I think that
Yes.
would say something about the direction of Trackhouse. See, if Trackhouse ends up with Almirola, even Almirola, Newman, or Chastain, okay, well, I don't think that does anything for them. But if
No.
they can get Kurt Busch there, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we mean business.
And I think it's going to matter where, again, a charter, the 23, they haven't, it's speculation. They haven't announced the second car yet. I feel like Monster Energy is going to play a big role in this because if they want to stay, they can go here, which is with Pitbull and Justin. I mean, that's a good, intriguing thing for them to stay. Or Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin calling. I feel like Kurt, and we'll show here why I have who I have in the seat. Almirola. I think he's going to have some Smithfield sponsorship. I
That'll
think
help
he can
too.
help.
Yeah.
They need kind of a veteran to go here, and I feel like, which you could probably go to the next one because it'll tie in why I feel like Almirola there brings money. 23, I feel like this one, the only logical option is here. Kurt Busch.
That's why I said
working with his
or
brother.
Trackhouse.
Yeah, I feel like Monster Energy it's intriguing to go with Michael Jordan. He can work with his brother. Denny Hamlin mentioned he needs a veteran to want to help maybe mentor Bubba a little bit more. See what they're missing. Is it Bubba? Is it the car? Are they missing something? Kurt Busch can do that. Kurt Busch tested the new car that's coming out next year. Kurt Busch is going to have a lot of insight to propel this team. Plus, let's be honest, it's towards the end of his career. He can work with his brother. He's won with Dodge. He's won with Ford. He's won with Chevy.
Oh yeah.
Never with Toyota. Why not? Why not say he's got some pride that want to do that, and he can go out. Him and his brother have improved the relationship. So I feel like, and why I feel like this is big is he can run a year or two here, and I feel like a Harrison Burton, a John Hunter Nemechek, this is their route because he's a veteran. He's in here for a year or two, and then this is maybe the option for them to come to.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be really hard for anybody to outplay Michael Jordan if they are targeting Kurt Busch.
Yep.
If they say that's our guy, they're going to get him.
Exactly. And Monster Energy would for them be like, hey, we can stay here in the Trackhouse Ganassi banner per se. It's fully Trackhouse after the season. But when Michael Jordan calls and they want Kurt Busch,
yep.
Michael Jordan's got a lot of money. They can make this happen. And Kurt Busch, I feel like now with the change, great. I question why would you leave Ganassi? Well, now you're leaving. You would stay in the spot, but it's like a new team essentially.
Yeah.
Why not go race with your brother?
Absolutely.
Because now, especially if that car doesn't have a charter, now that Trackhouse got there too, I don't feel like we're going to have more than 40 teams going for these spots anymore. I feel like they can roll the dice and run without a charter because Trackhouse now got there too. KAULIG now got there too. I feel like at this point, it's not as big of a risk. So it makes more sense for Kurt to go there.
And by the way, I would prefer myself, and look, I think unless it's the money thing with Almirola, if I'm Trackhouse and I lose out to Kurt Busch, out of the guys remaining, I'd rather have Ryan Newman in there.
Newman would make sense. He doesn't bring money. Almirola could bring some sponsorship. Stenhouse would make sense. Like those guys would make sense there, but Almirola can have that veteran presence with something can get you by for a year or two.
Sure.
JTG, I think, as we talked with Priest and Stenhouse, I think Stenhouse ends up with Stewart Haas. I think at that point, they move Priest up to the 47. I feel like there's a lot of factors here. Why not move up another year, take that chartered seat, know you're good. He's done some good things with him. Let's give him another year of learning, which means they'll have to have a younger driver in the next car. And you got all these factors. Can Almirola end up there? Yes. Can Newman end up there? Yes. Would they? Probably not. Noah Gregson's a guy that I feel like has got to have a spot to move up. As we mentioned on these other rides, I don't see a path for him to be mentioned with those teams. And people may wonder, well, why would he go to JTG when he's with Junior Motorsports right now? My thing would be like, does he need a fourth year in Xfinity? Let's look at what he did last year in Xfinity. 2 wins, championship 4, 17 top 5s, 25 top 10s. He's with the same team this year. No wins, 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s. His stats have gone down. He's got a lot of bad luck. He's had a lot of crashes, a lot of opportunities taken from him. But at the end of the day, people are going to look at stats. And it's a performance business. Sure. And you dropped considerably I think he knows if he comes back another year, whoa, now I've lost out. Now my stats are declining more. I might as well take a Cup seat while I can get it. It's a decent team. Plus, let's say that car doesn't get a charter. And let's say it's not a full-time seat. We know Beard Motorsports, who Brendan Gaughan showed up on the 4 Super Speedway races, likes him. He ran the Daytona 500 for him. Granted, he didn't make it because he got caught up in that wreck, but they like him enough that I feel like he could piece together between Beard and there to make it full time. So I feel like Grayson, that is a good path for him to move up the cup. Let's see what you can do. And maybe forge a path somewhere else. Look, he's running with Chevy, but there's not a lot of Chevy seats open at the top. He's not going to RCR. Hendrick set. Trackhouse, maybe. But is that a path Trackhouse? They want really another younger driver to go with Suarez. They kind of need a veteran. So maybe eventually Trackhouse, maybe for him move up and get that seat. So I feel like as of now, that would be Grayson's seat.
All right, now KAULIG. Okay, now this one is you think this is pretty much done?
Yeah, Haley's going there full time. That's
already a done deal. Full time.
That's a done deal. Allmendinger's part time. That ride.
That's a done deal.
Done deal. They just need we don't know how many races he's running part time. We know he's running full time Xfinity. So part time Cup. So what's that mean? It means there's probably quite a few seats open or races open.
And by the way, an AJ part time, does that mean really he's only going to go for the road courses?
Probably road courses, maybe Daytona 500.
Okay.
Maybe a few races here and there. That's about it. So
the other part-time guy will get the majority of the races.
Yes, and probably an Xfinity ride on top of it.
Okay.
He probably. So who I think here, so that's not going to be a big attractive for some of these.
No.
Kurt Busch didn't want to go there.
No.
Almirola's not going to do that. My pick, Ross Chastain. The reason why Ross Chastain ran for the Xfinity team in 2020, did really good with them. He was on loan from Ganassi there. Why not go back, go to part-time, run for him in Xfinity again, build your name back in, because he's starting to come around on a Cup. We've seen the success starting to come along, but
what happens if he wins one of these road course races and gets into the playoffs?
I think it helps Trackhouse maybe want to hold on to him.
Okay.
I think it helps that route. I think he's going to be in play for all these open seats. He just doesn't have a lot of money to bring to take those seats.
Okay.
Where KAULIG, you don't have to bring money. You can come and run part-time with Allmendinger. Granted, it's going to be a lot of races. Run Xfinity and see where it shapes up in a year or two from now. At least you're still a Cup driver with a good team, with a charter team. You could go compete and contend really well with the Xfinity series. But I just don't see a path. Would Stewart Haas take him over Stenhouse? Why would you? At least Stenhouse brings a little bit of money. He's not going to Roush. He's not going to Penske. Wood Brothers, maybe if De Benedetto leaves, but he's not going to go to Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin's team.
No.
So this is probably his best path to not fall too far.
Okay. And then next up is front row. And Michael McDowell's already set.
Yeah, I don't see him leaving. The 38 car has been kind of a turnstile lately. I think they can get another veteran. And this is where I feel like every younger driver with money could come in. Why not spend a little bit and get Ryan Newman? Because as we mentioned, I don't see a path for him to any of these seats. I don't think he wants to be done racing. We've seen how good they are on super speedways. Newman's good on super speedways. Maybe he steals a win at a Daytona or Talladega, gets a playoff spot, and can ride out with a little bit of dignity with one more year. Because I think this would be like a one more last hurrah. Let's go here. Let's finish out on top. Because other than Denny Hamlin's team, I don't see another path for him for a seat. He's not going back to Penske. He's not going back to Stewart Haas Racing. I don't feel like he's a Trackhouse type of driver. I don't see a path for JTG with why would he want to go there when at least he can go here. It's another 4 team. Again, who front row's aligned with? Roush Fenway Racing. Maybe Keselowski, he's taking a seat, can find some money to funnel his way to make Newman right out on top. So I feel like it's the most logical path instead of kicking him out of a seat. Just you're an alliance team, how Wood Brothers is with Penske. I want to build this team up to a little bit to funnel some people through to me eventually. Maybe move here. So I feel like that's his best option.
And then Rick Ware, who knows what they're going to do.
Pay drivers there. He could have 4. Right now he's got 4 charters. Does he end up with 3? Who knows? That Live Fast and Starcom, there's 3 teams left. There's no way knowing. It's going to be money. Who brings them? None of these big name guys are going to go there.
They have a nice logo. I like their logo.
They've got a great logo.
Yeah.
He's got a lot. Now he's one of only two. This him and Penske now the only teams with NASCAR Cup teams and IndyCar teams. So he's got a lot to offer. But none of these guys we mentioned, it would not make any sense for any of them to go race for any of these teams.
And Live Fast also has a nice logo.
They do. They could use a full-time driver. They're kind of a turnstile taking guys, but they're close. I feel like they said they're not for sale. They're not selling their charter, not selling their team. It'll be probably same thing they've done this year. I think another year just kind of building. So yeah. I feel like that is where silly season as of now could shape up. Could be wild. Could be some new teams changing this. But right now, that's what's open. And those are the drivers who are free agents. Free to look around.
Well, this is the list. And again, as you can see at the top, the only driver that you predict is not going to find a home is Harrison Burton.
Yep.
All those other drivers, all those 9 drivers in parentheses, those are the teams, the destinations that you predict that each one of those drivers will end up.
Correct. Yeah, as we mentioned, like I said with Burton, out of those paths, if I'm a young driver like him who just turned, he's going to be 21 in October, why would you take one of those teams without much of a future for you when you could just stay put another year, see what the future holds, as like a Newman, a Kurt Busch, an Almirola. These guys start days winding down. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. You might have another path of a bigger seat if you just wait one more year.
All right, so there you go. And this is something that is going to be updated as soon as we start hearing news, because like you just said, we heard this big news about the charter deal that was just made and nobody knew it was coming. So anything can happen. And we'll just make sure from now, because we really don't talk a whole lot of silly season. We don't have the time. We're always into the racing each week. But now that we've started the silly season talk, we are definitely going to incorporate that into all of our programming on a weekly basis when you have something to say, when you think that there's some news to break.
Exactly. Exactly.
Eric, I know you're going on vacation, so enjoy.
Thank you.
Should be a lot of fun with your family. And I see you got your haircut, so you're all set there.
Ready to go.
I got to get my haircut soon. And you're going to be back with us on the 14th. That's when we're going to be previewing New Hampshire on Prime Sports NASCAR, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Eric, appreciate it. We'll talk to you then. Great job.
Sounds good. Thank you.